Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Broken Cisterns Podcast here on Senetru Radio. This is Kenny, and I'm here with Susannah.
Hello.
We are here on episode 9 of the Broken Cisterns Podcast. We're going through chapters 10 and 11, which are God's intended order and not of this world. These are the last 2 chapters of the Broken Cisterns book. We're wrapping up today. We did just release a new book today, which is today is July 20th, 2026.
Yep.
That book is called The Testimony, The Relentless Pursuit of the Father. So we're going to be releasing a video on our website that'll go over what that book has contained in it. We'll spare you going through that today on this podcast. We'll also have a podcast starting on the testimony here in the next short amount of time. But we'll be starting a podcast on that titled The Testimony. This is going to be a great book. I'm really excited about this. It's actually a culmination of all the books that we've written so far, kind of broken down into this like concise format, and we give the true meaning of Scripture in its entirety in a single chapter of this book, which I'm very excited about that because I think it's been overcomplicated.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows that Jesus speaks about understanding being something that a child should be able to have. And this is in a single chapter. It doesn't require reading an entire book overwhelming with stories and potential theological implications and all that kind of stuff. The whole purpose of the entire through line in Scripture, which Susannah and I talk about in this book, was never really mentioned to us, but it has always been about surrender to Yahweh when he calls you.
And this is our first book we've written completely together.
Yes, that's right. So it's a combination. So Susannah's written some chapters. I've written some chapters. We've already given you some of our testimony in this book as well as in this podcast, but we go into detail on our testimony in the testimony, right? So we give the Scripture testimony, we give our testimony, we go through the whole gamut, but it's concise and we're excited about that.
Yeah.
But with that, and as a reminder, you can go to the show notes to get all of this information, and you can go to senetru.com, www.senetru.com to get any of our books in free PDF format, or you can go through to Amazon from our website and you can buy the books in a paperback or e-reader version. And that includes the testimony, which is out now. But now we're going to go ahead and get into episode 9, chapters 10 and 11 of God's intended order and not of this world. But first, Susannah is going to give us a recap of the last episode of this podcast.
So chapter 9 in the book was called Faith and Trust. And basically when I was writing this, I wanted to understand the implications of what those words mean, because they're thrown around by everyone now. And they're what we call flattened words, where they are familiar enough to say, but empty enough to mean almost nothing. So I really dug into what they meant, because I think it's probably not completely understood the difference between the two, or at least I didn't understand the difference between faith and trust. And so to make it very simple, and just to give a quick recap, faith is what you are oriented towards, and it is reflected in your life, the true meaning of faith. If you truly have faith in something or someone, as in Yahweh, your entire life reflects it. Trust is leaning your full weight against that thing and expecting it to hold. And one thing that I was actually thinking about this last night when I couldn't sleep, about trust, and how I used to say, I trust the universe, or I trust myself, or whatever. But this word meant nothing when things got rocky. If we really, really trust someone, we lean our entire weight into them. So that's what we talked about in that podcast. We just kind of broke it down a little bit. It's an interesting distinction between the two. People throw those words around a lot now. So that's what we talked about. Okay, so moving on to what we're talking about today, we're talking about living in the order that Yahweh has intended for his people. and also about not being of this world, which we'll get into a little bit later. But the scripture I start this chapter with is Psalm 127:1, and it says, "Unless Yahweh builds the house, they labor in vain who build it." And when I came across that particular psalm, it really made sense of kind of all of this. Our marriage, we've been married for 25 years, and the first 23 years were really, really hard. And we'll probably get into that a little bit. But what I realized was when I found that scripture to kind of match this chapter and put that together, it made the whole thing kind of come full circle. Is most of us spend so much effort working on ourselves, working on our relationships, trying not to fight. At least we did a lot for a long time. And we put in a lot of self-rule, self-made effort into things. And what David is saying here in this psalm is, unless Yahweh orders what you're doing, you're laboring in vain. It can't be in alignment if we're doing it on our own power. I think that's just going to set us up for what we're going to talk about today, is that definitely was our experience. We grew up in families that went to church and had this whole kind of value set around being a Christian and raising the children with this kind of the father is the head of the household and everyone kind of does what he says. And we kind of brought that into our marriage, into our family at the beginning when we were still trying to make the church thing work. And our relationship was rocky from the beginning. We had no foundation. We definitely didn't build it in alignment with Yahweh. We were two people, really young too. We were in our early 20s. We were trying to make this marriage work with this broken view of how it was supposed to go. And it was a struggle. And the struggle became much worse before it got way better 23 years later. But when we were first awakened, one of the first things that was discerned through this kind of process of the dust settling and trying to understand what was happening, and Yahweh was talking to us, but the enemy was also really active at this time. So kind of trying to pull everything apart and discern what was going on, we were asked to come into his order.
Yeah, and I'm going to ask that people give us a chance here, because there is assumptions, and this world has assumptions around like, oh, God's order, the Christian church, the family values, like, oh, the man is the head, he rules over the woman, and all that kind of garbage.
This is not that.
Give us a chance to talk about our experience here and what's true, because it's not what you think it is.
No.
And we find a lot of people hear what we say and immediately have a baseline assumption that they tie it to and then stop listening. Whether it's like, oh, we know what they're saying, they're religious.
Yeah.
Oh, we know what they're saying, God's intended order, the man rules over the woman. And this is not that. This is different. I'm not going to say it's the opposite. It's different than what you think, and it works the way it's supposed to work, the way God intended it to function. And then the other thing that I'll hit on here, which is very important, is this is how Christian families grow up. And even families who are not Christian, that's how many of them are raised, is like this man is the head of the house, and he's like responsible for being the spiritual head of the house. And I'm not going to dispute that necessarily, but that's not the end of the story. One of the big issues is that Jesus has been presented as God himself, and our way of being is to surrender to Yahweh like Jesus did throughout his whole life, where it's not my will but yours be done, right? And when Jesus was made God, there was no longer anyone that was to be surrendered to.
Right.
And so there
was no longer an example to follow.
Yeah, there's no role model anymore. And so we're coming from that sort of standpoint.
Yeah. So when families come to it with this Jesus as God perspective, while I think they have the right intentions, when you're worshiping a false God, which we've talked about over and over again, when you're worshiping Jesus as God, you're not going to Yahweh. And that is where the power to do this actually comes from, which we're going to talk about because it's pretty incredible. But when this first happened back, it was probably like in February of 2025, when we moved to Bend, we moved into a new little rental house. Everything was up in the air. Things were different. Things were uncomfortable. We lost some of our closest relationships very quickly.
Understandably, too. Like, it's understandable that people didn't understand what we were going through. And we weren't being told by Yahweh to make them understand. We were being told to lean on him and let him take care of the rest. So people couldn't understand what we were being shown, and we couldn't explain it to them. And that's just the way it is. That's just the way it went. And we're still leaning on him. Yeah.
So we had a conversation. I remember this specific conversation. Kenny, I don't think remembers it quite as well, but I remember it because we had a conversation in the morning, one winter morning, shortly after we moved into this new house. And Kenny was like, I think he said something about we need to come into order. And my heart just sank because I saw this independence that I had been fighting for slip away. I saw this persona I had built for myself, this spiritual guide, this wellness coach, this woman who took control of her life and had self-healed herself. And I just saw all of it slip away. And those fears were completely unfounded. I'm very happy to say that nothing could be further from the truth. Yes, I lost this fake persona I built for myself, which was actually a huge relief because that one was exhausting. And I certainly, the independence that I was fighting for was this false version of control that caused Kenny and I to butt heads all the time because we were both vying for something that actually we have put, Yahweh is in that position now. Yahweh is in the position of dictating our lives. We are surrendered completely to him. Neither of us are in charge of the other. We're both totally surrendered under him. And so we both defer to him and he runs the show.
And this is where I'll remind people the spiritual war, which Paul talks about in Ephesians 6:12. We've said this many times. We battle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. And that could not be more true than in a marriage or a relationship.
You may have some kind of frame of reference for this.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen it. This is where the enemy attacks the most. And just because it's, in our case, just because it's Susannah, doesn't mean the battle is now with Susannah. It means when she's being attacked or when the enemy is trying to pit us against one another, it doesn't mean the battle is with her. It means the battle is with the enemy. And that's like more than ever when you need to bring Yahweh in and like make sure he's like taking care of it. Like, hey, God, look what your enemy is doing to your children. Like, come take care of this. And so I want to call that attention there, but I think Susannah put it so well, is that coming into order was coming under Yahweh. Mm-hmm. It wasn't Susannah surrendering to me.
Nope.
It was both of us surrendering to him. And I knew in me, when I said coming into order, I knew that it meant I had to go first. And that doesn't mean I had to. It's what God was telling me. You need to show it. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about this earlier today, but men want to take care of their family, right? They want to take care of their kids. They want to take care of their spouse, their significant other, their wife. They want to take care of them. They hate to see them hurt. They hate to see them being injured.
Or struggling or stressed or...
Yeah, and they want to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
And often when those things come up and like previously when I couldn't fix it, I would get really frustrated and angry. And sometimes I would take it out. Like it would cause Susannah and I to butt heads.
Yep.
And now those circumstances, I realize I'm not in charge of this. I'm not in control of it. It's a spiritual war. We're in a spiritual battle and the enemy is not Susannah. The enemy is the enemy. And when she struggles, I need to go to Yahweh and ask for help. Ask him to help. That doesn't mean I do anything. Sometimes it means I shut up. Literally. Sometimes it means I need to shut up. And sometimes I have to just take a minute and think and let him speak and tell me to shut up. Like, can he come shut up? Right? And then
In the past, that wasn't necessarily your pattern.
no, definitely not. And it's not, I'm not perfect, but it's what I see Yahweh doing. And another thing is that, and I'm speaking for men here mostly, but the man wants, they think, especially in these Christian families, they think that they're supposed to be like the know-it-all and have the answer to everything, and that they're the ones who are the spiritual head because God only speaks to them or some crap like that. And that is not true. Susannah is just as much a child of Yahweh as I am, and he speaks to her. He's not contradicting, but there are times when I don't have an answer for something, and I have had to take a step back, and Yahweh said, listen to what she's saying. Susannah has a lot of discernment that I don't have, and I need to, that's a release of pride that has to take place on both of our sides.
Right.
Yahweh does not instill pride in us and say, I'm better than her or she's better than me. It's not that case at all. Neither of us are better than the other. And both of us lean into Yahweh, and he speaks to both of us and gives us both direction as a team. Like as a team, that's how we're working, and that's how we're moving forward. It is not me lording over Susannah saying, this is what we do today. You just listen because God speaks to me. That's not how it works.
No. So I couldn't agree more with that, especially the team part, just especially having the almost a quarter century on the front end of this to compare everything with. It's night and day different. It took a work of Yahweh to make it happen in the most literal sense. This is a supernatural thing that happens. When you surrender to Yahweh, he works through you. He works through both of you. The crazy things that have changed is where we desire the same thing at the same time almost all the time. When it comes to food, when it comes to, we go for walks every day. When it comes to where we go for a walk, like, it sounds silly and trite or whatever, but we're both being given the same information from the same source. And so I think we've gotten used to it now, where it doesn't seem that crazy. But for a while, it was just like, wow, you're thinking the exact same thing I am. When before, we were literally butting heads about absolutely everything for a quarter of a century. We couldn't agree on anything. We were living basically as roommates, I would say. Our family dynamic had crumbled, and it was a literal fight to stay married. It almost ended a few different times. And so being in this place now where we are super in sync because of the source that is directing both of us, we're not getting different information. We're getting the same information. We're writing a book. Kenny was just talking about it. We wrote a book. We just released it today, The Testimony. And we never have been able to write a book together before. Ever. Never in a million years would we be able to write a book together and not kill each other. And
or disagree consistently on like what was in there. And it's because the information's not coming from us.
Right.
It's coming from Yahweh through each of us. I mean, we've been working, this is our seventh book that we've written. I say we because Susannah and the ones that like have been, I guess, led by me. I don't even know if I can call it that, but like Susannah has been the editor, and she's been the one to deal with having to say, hey, this doesn't make sense, or you need to say it more plainly this way, or hey, I don't understand. Those are difficult things to say to somebody who's written something.
yeah, and it's hard not to take offense.
Yeah.
I mean, we have little tiny moments of that.
Yeah.
We're not perfect, but the difference is huge. We would never have been able to write a book together before. We would never have been able to be together all day before, which we are now. We're together all day, every single day. Before, we had very separate lives before, and we could barely hang on when we weren't having separate lives.
Yeah, and now we have this book, The Testimony, has joint testimony from us, our relationship with Yahweh while we have our own. We also have what I would call we refer to it in the Broken Cisterns book. It says one flesh, but we've actually changed that language to be one spirit, because that's really where it comes from.
Right.
It's a one spirit relationship that happens through Yahweh. He is spirit. We worship him in spirit, which means we surrender fully to him in spirit. So our relationship, Susannah and I, is first and foremost connected through spirit. First and foremost. And it is us together surrendered, not one lording over the other, not one smarter than the other, not one doing more work than the other, not any of that. There's none of that going on. So I'll add to this, because part of this chapter on God's intended order is talking about how society is fractured because men and women are fractured within their relationships together. Marriages are fractured, families are fractured because of that. I mean, we see that very, very clearly. There's households, 18.1 million fatherless children in the US alone. There's some significant numbers, and it's not man's fault alone, and it's not woman's fault alone. It's a spiritual battle where the enemy is pitting them both against each other.
Yeah. He's playing off their desires and amplifying them.
Yeah. And making them think that they're their own desires.
Yeah. And then also pitting men against women and women against men.
In society, in households, and in all these cases. And it's a spiritual battle, right? It starts spiritually first. The Christian church is not a good example because they have elevated a God who is Jesus, and Jesus is the one who surrenders to Yahweh. So that has created a fracture in and of itself. The relationship between covenant partners, between man and woman, whether you want to call them married or whatever you want to call them, I don't really care. Covenant partnership between man and woman is meant to be them surrendered together.
Right.
That's it. That's what it comes down to. Both of them surrender to Yahweh together, leading their family with that example.
And what I said before, which I'm just going to repeat, is that we're both receiving the same information. So it's not like one of us has an idea and then tries to get the other one on board. We're both receiving information from Yahweh, and so we are in alignment almost on almost every single thing.
Except salad.
You like salad.
And ice cream.
You have some differing opinions around food preferences sometimes, but for the most part, we are in almost complete alignment with almost everything, almost all of the time, which again is such a huge difference from before when we were living in survival mode. We were in survival mode. We were trying not to completely fracture, but looking back, we were completely fractured. There was no alignment at all. I was running the show in our family for many years, and I was making bad decisions, and Kenny really couldn't say anything because I wouldn't listen.
And I thought I was supposed to force it, and I eventually gave up because I didn't understand the right way. Susannah didn't understand the right way. We grew up in institutional Christianity that didn't understand the right way. We grew up in families that were trying their best and were following that institution in many cases. Surrendered households have been few and far between for a very long time because of the elevation of Jesus as God. That's created a major fracture in families since the Council of Nicaea, at least.
And going back to Psalm 127:1, unless Yahweh builds the house, they labor in vain who build it. And we really, for the first probably 23 years, there was this knowing that I had that our marriage could be different. And I begged and pleaded for our marriage I wanted to go to therapists. I wanted to try methods. I wanted to read books together. I wanted to do Bible studies together. I had all of these flesh-based activities that I wanted to try because that's what the world sells you. I mean, there's a bazillion marriage programs out there. And I'm sure that I presented several of them to Kenny at multiple different times. Again, I always wanted to go to therapy. And I was trying to muscle our marriage into something that felt right. And it wouldn't have been possible. We tried a few different things. We always, fell out of the habit of whatever it was. I'm sure that some of you can relate with that, where you try something, you try a communication method, or you have check-ins weekly or something for a while, or you make sure your date nights are consistent, or whatever it is, the thing that you're trying for the season that you have the willpower to do it. And then the flesh just can't make it happen. And understanding how the flesh works as opposed to how the spirit works now, we can very clearly see that the flesh does not have the authority to do this. The only cure, the only root cure is to be surrendered to Yahweh. That's the only way to ensure that you're both surrendered to the same source and you're both getting the same information. So there isn't really a source for contesting anything.
Yeah. It's all the same.
It's all from the same source.
Yeah, and it's all coming from Yahweh. It's all spirit. It's not striving. We're not trying to force some spiritual activities on a daily basis. That's the flesh. Trying to force, you said Bible study, trying to force, we don't get up and say, now we need to do our morning devotions together. We don't do that.
No.
We do what God tells us to do. We ask him to tell us, we wait on it.
Mm-hmm.
We go for walks because we feel like that's what God's leading us to do. We do what he leads us to do. We don't force it. When we ourselves are forcing it, that is self-rule. That is the flesh. That is striving. That's trying to do it on your own. That's not being led by Yahweh. And we're going to talk about this in this next book because there's a huge issue that especially the institutional church has gotten into, is they are trying to perfect themselves in the flesh. Mm-hmm. And Paul warns the Galatians about this very thing because the Galatians had been born of the Spirit. So they start to be pulled upward. God plants his logos into them and they have a new governing structure. But the enemy knows that. So he comes in right behind that and he tries to get you back moving into the flesh. So the enemy goes into the Galatians and he starts getting them through people who are part of their group of believers. He starts getting them to think that they need to be perfected in the flesh through religious rituals. Mm-hmm. And that particular religious ritual at the time was circumcision. But today it's reading your Bible, it's getting baptized, it's going to church, it's memorizing verses, it's ritual communion, it's all that type of stuff. Those are all literal actions that you do physically. That is your flesh. That's your flesh operating. That's your flesh trying to perfect something that it can't. Only the Spirit can. You have to allow Yahweh to do it, and you have to trust him to do it. That's part of the faith and trust piece, is allowing Yahweh to build that trust in you. You're leaning on him. Like Susannah said, that word trust is leaning fully on him and allowing him to do it.
Okay, so I want to just give a little example of how this has played out. Like I mentioned a few minutes ago, this really is a supernatural process. This is not something you can make up. This is not something you can method your way into, or again, there's no communication style that can get you here. This truly comes from the Spirit of Yahweh. So I'm going to tell you a funny story that happened just as an example. This actually happened many, many months ago. And so there's lots of other...
Probably like a year ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but there's lots of other examples. We often have dreams about the same people in the same night. Yahweh works through us in dreams. There's a lot of dream activity going on. Also, Satan has his fair share of things going on. But I'm just going to tell this funny example because... I don't know, about a year ago, I don't know exactly how long ago it was, but I woke up in the middle of the night with a feeling of rage running through me, which has never happened before. It has never happened again. It was super random. I woke up and felt anger in my body. And I was very confused by it because I don't know where it came from. I didn't know where it came from. And like I said, it's not a regular occurrence. It's never happened before. And I think, Kenny, you woke up at the same time. Or we talked in the middle of the night, and I just said something like, I just had this horrible feeling, this rush of anger run through me. It was actually kind of distressing because we were still a little bit new to this whole thing and understanding the spirit realm, which we've gotten a lot more reps under our belt now. So we understand it a little bit better now. But at the time, this horrible feeling was in my body and I hated it. Like, I don't want to feel angry in the middle of the night when I'm sleeping. And so I think we both woke up and I was telling Kenny about it. And
Yeah. And I had gotten angry that day before. And I don't even recall what it was particularly about. I might have been ranting about something I was upset about, and I was really upset about it. And I was loud, and Susannah doesn't like loudness, first of all. And I'm you probably have picked up on my vocal tone is louder.
You should see how far the microphone is away from me.
So I got upset about this specific thing. It wasn't at Susannah. I was upset and I was being loud and I knew it was impacting her in the moment. Like in the moments I knew it was impacting her. So then that night she wakes up and she's angry. But before she wakes up, I had a dream that I was trying to fix a hot water heater and it was leaking everywhere. It had busted open and was leaking all over the place. And I was trying to fix fill up cups with all the water that was pouring out of this hot water heater, and there's steam coming out everywhere of this hot water heater. And then I wake up and Susannah tells me,
wait, what song was?
Oh yeah. So this song's running through my head
in the dream,
and it's, I don't know if anybody's heard this song, but it's, I'm a little teapot, short and spout. Here is my handle, here is my spout. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, just tip me over and pour me out. So my mom used to sing this song to me all the time. It's a song about you being angry and you blowing your steam off. And so I have this song in my head and I wake up and God tells me, Susannah's mad because of you. It came through you and it spiritually impacted her. And he was making us aware, he was making me aware of how I impact her spiritually. I mean, it's kind of clever. It's funny, right?
They are clever and funny, the dreams.
Sometimes. But both of us were like, what the heck? How weird. And I think there was another time too where the opposite happened. It was the other way around. You had gotten upset about something and I felt it in the middle of the night. And it was just, I got up and I woke up and I was all angry. And I'm like, why am I so angry? It was the same type of situation. So covenant partners have an impact on each other spiritually. Whether you believe that or not, it doesn't matter to me. If you believe it, it's true. We've seen it happen. You impact the other person. And we are attentive to that more.
It is not the same as me being in a bad mood and Kenny being put off by my bad mood. It's not like that.
Yeah.
It's like a connection that comes through that, it goes both ways. And it doesn't go the kind of negative way all that often, but it goes the other direction where our desires are aligned, we say the same thing at the same time. And this is not like we've just been married a really long time and that's why. It's different than that. And again, it is a supernatural thing that is only possible through our connection to Yahweh, through surrender to Yahweh.
Yeah, and it also works for things that hurt each other. I can feel when Susannah's hurting. And I'd mentioned this before, I previously would want to try and solve that issue for her.
Loudly?
Maybe loudly. Maybe I'd get frustrated when I couldn't, and so I get mad because I couldn't. And now I know it's not me. It's not me. I can't take it personally. That's what the enemy wants me to do. The enemy wants me to just get mad and take it out on her because he wants our relationship to fracture.
Yeah, that's what he really wants.
Yeah.
One of the other things that have been a huge change, a huge difference between operating out of our self-rule and ego and all of that before and then operating through Yahweh is that we don't feel emotionally kind of responsible for the other person. Or I don't feel like Kenny is supposed to validate me the way I did before. I think we depended on each other before, which we didn't really know we were doing that. But looking back now, we kind of depended on each other.
Unhealthy dependence.
Yeah, an unhealthy dependence on each other to validate or prop each other up or whatever it was. And now we're both surrendered to Yahweh, where we're getting that from him. That's where it's coming from, because we just feel complete and stable and not shaky. At least I felt shaky before. Our relationship was so rocky for so long. It just feels safe, and we're both covered now. And so covered by Yahweh. Yeah. And so that's another huge difference. So moving on to the topic of not of this world, I wrote this chapter 11, because and maybe this is where maybe you can relate with this as well, and we're going to talk directly to you about that. I never fit in anywhere. I didn't belong anywhere. I only had one friend, usually at school. I could not fit into big groups. I always had this desire to have a big group of friends, and I never did. And I now understand why. And Jesus says they are not of this world, just as I am not of the world. I think it's stated in a few other places in scripture talking about being a stranger and a pilgrim in the land. And now that I understand what that all means, and it gives context to why growing up I never could fit in anywhere. And I know there's a lot of people that feel like this. We know several. It's just this kind of painful experience to be in this life and be kind of on the outside looking in, like this life that people seem to be okay with, and feeling this deep disconnect where it's not okay. Something about it is not okay, but we're always trying to make ourselves okay to fit in. I know a big strategy I had was to drink a lot of alcohol when I was in my late teens and early 20s, because when I drank, I felt like I could make conversation with people like normal people do. And it helped me feel like I could break into conversations and break into some sort of social fabric when I just didn't fit otherwise, and I couldn't make it work. And that's why I dove into this New Age stuff. Once we moved to the Columbia Gorge and it was everywhere there, I found people to mix with and promote my expertise to, and it sort of felt like belonging in a way, but deep inside it always felt wrong. Like it always felt like it was a lie. And so that was the closest I think I ever felt to actually feeling like I fit in. But now looking back, it was just this facade that I put on because that was the only way I knew to feel like I fit. And that's one of the things that what I said about when we talked about coming into order, I was just like, oh, this persona I've built is going to slip away. And thankfully it did, because it was so much upkeep to try to be someone that fit in everywhere, and it didn't really work.
Yeah, and Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. And for me, it was different than Susannah. I always had a lot of people around me. I like forced myself to always be around people because it was almost like I felt uncomfortable if I wasn't around people. And now I'm the opposite of that. It's very strange. But one thing that has been different, and we talk about this more in this new book, The Testimony, because we go deep into each of our testimonies and then our joint testimony together in a couple chapters. But one thing that I strongly felt was like there was something different and something greater than what the systems and institutions of this world were doing to try and address the pain and suffering of people. Was like a big area of topic for me because I worked in it. I was heavily focused on it. It hurt me to see people not being taken care of. And I knew that this wasn't a problem that was unresolvable, but it was unresolvable with the world's means. And I knew that there was an order that was not of this world, that the order of Yahweh, that would be able to take care of this. And again, we talk about this more in the testimony when we get into that, but that's something that I knew. And I think that's a key. We talk about this in the chapter, the calling of the testimony, but that's an indicator for people. I think that Yahweh might be calling them. And you'll notice in our language, we're not looking to get people to convert to something. If God's going to call you, he's going to call you. That's not our job. Our job is to be here when you do get called, so that you don't seem like you've gone crazy. There's other people who've experienced this. There's other people who've gone through it. It's real. The way the institution makes things seem is that The people who were written about in the Bible were for another era. They're people who existed at another time, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Those stories in the Bible are testimony to the reality of the will and intent of God operating through humans, and he still does it today. And he's going to do it at a larger scale, but he still does it today. And we're here to testify to that actually happening. So if you are one of those people who's like, I don't fit in, like I never have fit in, I've tried to make myself fit in through, I don't know, other means. Susannah mentioned alcohol. There could be other things that people have used. You know, I use vices too. Like if there's other means, or you just know, you have this underlying feeling like there is something greater that I know is out there, and it's not in anything that I can see.
Right.
That's something calling to you. And again, we're not here to push that through or anything like that. God's going to do what he's going to do, and you're not going to stop it. Paul says, who can resist his will? And the answer is no one. No one can resist it. If you're his, he's going to call you into his kingdom, and you will say yes. The choice that you make just reveals who you really are, which is his.
I'm going to read this little section at the end of this chapter.
In the book.
In the book. The world's solutions. If you have felt a deep sense of wrongness too, the world has an answer for it. Actually, it has many. Pick your flavor. One of my favorites that I grabbed onto and eventually started selling was this. You just haven't connected with yourself deeply enough yet. Go inward. Do transformative breath work. Create the ceremony. The downloads will come, and when they do, they'll change you permanently. You'll arrive at a level of okayness that finally sticks. I built a whole business around this idea. I found the right music, the kind that creates a mystical atmosphere, the kind that makes it feel like something is happening. I facilitated breathwork and watched people have experiences that felt real and significant. And I knew, even then, that all I was giving them was a lift, a temporary high, a feeling of connection to themselves that evaporated by the following morning. I wanted so badly for it to be something more. I kept doing it anyway, because I needed an identity. I needed to be the one with something special, something worth admiring. I was an empty cistern trying to fill itself by becoming the one who filled others. I couldn't have told you that at the time, but I can tell you that now. The church has a different storefront. Same product. Get right with Jesus, pray harder, make your quiet time meaningful. Read and memorize scripture. Mean it more when you say you accept Jesus. There's a place to arrive at, and even if you're not there yet, you just haven't done enough of the right things hard enough. Try again. Both of them, the wellness world and the religious one, put the solution inside of you or inside of your effort. Both of them say, the problem is that you just haven't done this correctly yet. And everyone has a book, a program, or a workshop that they will sell you to show you how to do it correctly. Both of them treat a jurisdiction problem like a performance problem. Here's what no one said. The wrongness you feel isn't a symptom of not trying hard enough. It's not a trauma layer you haven't excavated yet. It's not a spiritual discipline you've been skipping. The wrongness is accurate. You're picking up a real signal. The world you are trying to fit into, trying to fix yourself inside of, trying to arrive at okayness within is actually wrong. Not wrong for you specifically, wrong, period. You can never fix your way out of it. No amount of breath work, no level of coaching, no consistency of quiet time will resolve a kingdom problem. Because the tools of one kingdom to fix a problem that only a different kingdom can address will never work. The lift will never be permanent. It wasn't designed to be. Here's one way I know that's true. I notice it now every morning. For as long as I can remember, I woke up with a, quote, chip on my shoulder. Not about anything specifically, just a low-grade, not okayness that had always been there, like a hum underneath everything. I didn't have a name for it. It wasn't sadness, it wasn't anger. It was more like I arrived here already wrong somehow, and everything I did was either trying to prove that wasn't true or trying to hide that it was. 40 years of that is exhausting in a way that's hard to describe because you don't even know you're tired. It's just the water you swim in. It followed me around all day, every day. It wove its way through every interaction, every moment of silence. My parents called it a bad attitude when I was growing up and said, "We need to talk," many times about it while I was growing up. My husband called it a bad mood and learned to read it and work around me. I spent 40 years actively managing it so it wouldn't be visible to people who didn't know me well. One morning, I noticed it was gone. I don't even remember when it was. Now the first words out of my mouth are something light, something easy, maybe a laugh at our ridiculous dog. But it feels different, and some time ago I realized it's not there. That chip, that not okayness is gone. It's not suppressed, it's not managed, it's just gone. That is not something I did. I couldn't. I tried for my entire life to get rid of that thing, and it never would go away. So basically, changing kingdoms is what fixed the issue. And it's not something that you can try to make yourself feel better inside of. If this kingdom jurisdiction issue is what is causing this wrongness feeling, you can't fix it with flesh-based activities. And so this being in this world becomes increasingly uncomfortable when you're in the other kingdom. But the other kingdom is the right place to be.
And as we mentioned, there's indicators. If Yahweh is calling you into his kingdom, only he can call you in. And every single one who he calls will come. And so that's why I say with incredible confidence that when Yahweh calls you, you will know it and you will respond. Because every single one that he calls will come. And the kingdom that you'll move into is greater than the kingdom of this world. And that's where the real solutions are, as Susannah mentioned, that's where the healing comes. The healing comes there.
Yeah.
And it can be immediate, abrupt.
Yeah. It was.
It can happen, you don't even know that is what has occurred.
Yeah, you just realize later that thing is gone.
Yeah, where did that go?
Yeah, like, oh. Okay, so that brings us to the end of the Broken Cisterns podcast. We've gone through the whole book, gone through my really amazing journey of trying to fix myself with all these world's methods that just
Don't work.
they don't work. They make you think you're doing something all flesh-based. And yeah, thanks for listening. I hope maybe you find some kind of understanding in the not of this world piece. If you feel wrong in this world, it's not because you're not doing something right. It's because you don't belong here.
Yeah, there's a purpose and there's a point, and we're with you. That's what we're here to say. We're here to say that we're with you. So you're not alone. We're not of this world with you.
Also, I just want to say, if you ever want to reach out, please do. You can reach out through our website. We would love to hear from you.
And with that, we'll conclude the Broken Cisterns podcast. As a reminder, the testimony is now out and available on our website in a PDF, free PDF download. You can also go through there to order the book off of Amazon. Website is senetru.com, www.senetru.com. Otherwise, thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you when we start the testimony podcast.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.